Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Quake 2 Nightmare difficulty video walkthrough. Moving through the next sequence in the game. And of course we will not be using the BFG, or a certain energy drink of truth that turns you into an unkillable killing machine. We've now got a pretty decent assortment of weapons. We've got some armor, which is good. That enables you to have a much easier time. I wonder how hard this game would be if you turned the armor off. You'd probably have to pretty much take no damage during fights, because it's real easy to die when you don't have any protection. But at the same time, you can do these fights without being clipped. It just takes a couple of attempts usually, because it's so easy to just... everything stacks up at once and it gets... like, look at that. That's the kind of thing where that jump... there's no reason for that jump to do what it just did then. The hitbox on it was like designed by Satan. It's worse than any hitbox in a Souls game I've played, and you've heard me shit talk the Souls games enough. As much as I am someone who adores them, but hates the fucking fan base and hates the prestige that they've got now because it's essentially ruining the industry. That shit's just unfair and stupid if you ask me. I don't really understand it. But we can give it some leeway because this is not the most modern game. This game is quite old at this point, and they were doing different things. I think the decision to activate that jumping attack when clearly the devs realised it didn't work and it wasn't fun. And I feel like I'm vindicated on such thoughts because they fucking changed it. Which shows you that it wasn't a good idea and no bugger likes it. And I'm not even a Quake 2 guy. I imagine if I was a Quake 2 guy, I'd be pretty salty about that, because when you change something so distinctly, you piss off the people that know the game. But in the last two videos, we've been on a little bit of a tangent talking about the merits of learning things the hard way rather than the easy way. It all stems from the modern controls in Street Fighter 6, which are a good idea, but sadly, they are a bit of a ceiling on people's ability to learn and develop. Best case scenario is somebody starts on modern and moves to classic, and it makes it an easier transition. But I just don't think it will, because if you'd have started on Classic, all the stuff you learned on Modern would still be there, you'd just be able to throw a fucking fireball. Anyhow, we moved off of that tangent, and then we moved on to trying to clarify a point I made earlier, but I went on some storytelling shit and ended up talking about something else. But I suppose we could say a third time's a charm. And it certainly will be. So the idea of, I'm going to get X rank in X game, and I'm going to be happy. In a lot of games, this is absolutely fine and completely innocuous. Because in most games, you can learn most games in the time it takes you to read whatever it is you read in the toilet when you're bored. Be it the bottle of bleach, be it the book that's just laying there from someone's bath, who you're not reading but you have a gander to see what it's all about. Or whatever else is hanging around, you know? I tend to read like the shampoo bottles. Some shit like that. Because most modern games, let's face it, they play themselves. They're effortless, they're tedious, and for some reason they're celebrated. But when it comes to fighting games, it's different. There are a few games that are like this. Genres where when you first get into them, you don't immediately get good and see success within 30 minutes. This is something that can sting nowadays because everybody wants success in under 30 seconds. And most games are designed to deliver it in under 20. So, you bump your head into a title that is just a little bit too rigid and a little bit too skillful to be immediately conquered. And then you either have one response. You either go, damn, this is hard. This is cool. Let's stick with it, see what we can do. Or you go, this is hard. This should be easier. I'm going to complain on Reddit. I'm going to go play fucking Minecraft or whatever it is that people do to run away. And depending on who you are, depends on which response you do. As we take on another one of the mutants. The difficulty is, with those games, is that you're a neophyte. Which is just a fancy way of saying a noob. And the problem with a lot of people when they know is they project how they feel about something they know, or in their minds they think they know a considerable deal more than what they know about the thing they're having problems with. There was a famous case of this with Leffen, who is a professional Smash Brothers player. Very, very good player. He's placed very well. He knows what he's doing. Smash, even if you don't respect it, which a lot of people don't, sadly, is a very competitive fighting game with lots of execution, and it's pretty damn tough to play at that level. It's incredibly impressive when you know what those players are doing, and those players have been playing for a long time, and they do a good job. However, when Leffen tried to play Tekken, Tekken's not like Smash Brothers. Is it a fighting game? Yes. Does it have mind games? Yes. Are you outplaying your opponent? Yes. But sadly, as we all know, the systems dictate how you can do that and how effective you are when you do. So thus, Leffen ran into the same problem everybody does, where he is a high-level fighting game player, he knows high-level fighting games, but he can't get to that because the delivery system is different, and he does not know the delivery system to the ability to enable him to do what he can do in Smash. So he runs into the situation of where you complain about factors of a game that are essentially legacy factors that have existed for a long time that all the players have got used to, and you don't, so it's new to you, thus it becomes problematic. And what ended up happening is a lot of the pro people who played Tekken watched him and said, you know, he's adapting really well, he's doing super good for Tekken, but sadly, no one's good at Tekken when they play for like 3 weeks. Tekken takes years. These people have been playing for decades, not years, not weeks. Like, there is an incredible amount of time that gets put into Tekken, and because Tekken is iterative in its newest versions, and because there's so many pre-existing factors that you can learn in previous games, if you have multiple Tekkens under your belt, you have a bigger advantage than somebody coming into that game and having to learn all of that suite of information that they have never seen before. So getting into Tekken as a fighting game is an incredibly intimidating proposition if you want to compete at a high level. If you want to just jump in there, mash some buttons, knock yourself out. That's not what Leffen wanted. Leffen wanted to get directly to the mind games and to the high level play, but he didn't want to go through all the building blocks and all the years that it takes to build up that foundation. And it's understandable, you know. I think sometimes it can be harder this for people who are high level, because you know what high level is and you just want to get back there, but you can't. And this is what happens, even at the highest level of play. When you try to play something difficult, even if you are a capable player who has played at high level before, there is no guarantee that you're going to see success. Because they're just not the same beast. You know, all of this seems very obvious to some people. You might be sitting here being like, no shit, Sherlock, and I'm with you. But sadly, this is not as obvious to some people as it is to perhaps you. And that's why we have these conversations, and that's why these people get the shock of their life. And I tell stories all the time on my stream about how whenever I meet somebody that tells me they're good at something, whenever I challenge them on something, they're generally bad. That is just reality in many ways. Lots of people like to exaggerate how good they are. Lots of people like to seem like they're the badass. It's like that guy you meet that tells you that he's just beat up 5 ninjas in the fucking jungle, and you're like, oh my god. Dude, you're 35, when are you going to grow out of this bullshit? But they exist, you know? Look at fucking Frank Dux. What a douchebag. Anyhow. People struggle with the concept that the goal that they've set is not going to be the be-all and end-all of what they want. And this is one of the things that, when you analyse any kind of goal, any kind of quest that you set up for yourself, you come to see the building blocks of it and kind of the weird cyclical futility of it too. And you see it in modern society when it comes to consumerism. We are conditioned to work because we have to. If we don't work, we can't eat. And then we're conditioned to use the money that we earned to buy shit we don't need. And we're bombarded daily by ads and all kinds of nonsense in order, through a slow effacing attrition, to gradually convince us that we do need them. And if that doesn't work, we're then beholden to this wonderful, like, show reel of high points of other people's life thanks to social media, where they're showing you all this fancy shit that they have, that they've got, and they're doing it in a frequency that makes you think that they have it all the time. So if you didn't like it to begin with, or you didn't want it to begin with, now you've seen that person, they're doing it loads, and now look how happy they look. So now you're like, well, I need that too. So you buy that shit, don't you? And what this does is it turns us into these consumerists. It turns us into this consumption, like, delusion where you crave and crave and crave and eat and eat and eat and eat, but you never feel satisfied. There's no satiation. You cannot be sated. And it turns it into this kind of hollow chase of endorphins where you don't want the thing, you want the feeling you get when you want the thing. And this happens with lots of stuff, where you get so conditioned to want things that when you get them, you're not satisfied, and you indeed feel worse, even though you've reached the goal. And when it's something as simple as maybe saving up or using money to buy it, there is a real sense of instant gratification. You can get it immediately. It's on Amazon, it's next day delivery, it's Prime, it's this, it's that. Like, you get that sense of connection of, ooh, shiny thing, I'm a magpie, pick it up, it comes tomorrow, you know? And that's the hook, isn't it? That's the thing that gets us craving. And people look at that with games. If I get that camouflage, or that skin, or that DLC, I'm going to feel amazing. And it's going to be so sick. It's all I've ever wanted. And then you buy it, and then it turns out that it's not that good. Maybe you didn't want it that much. Maybe it was the idea of it you wanted, the myth of it, the fact you didn't have it made it more appealing. The grass is greener on the other side, indeed. And then you're like, oh, but that thing, ooh, that other thing over there, now that's the thing I want. And of course, this is something that happens every single day to lots and lots of people. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you've seen it or that you notice it yet. And even if you do notice it, sometimes you might even deceive yourself because you can't be that easily led. You can't be that fickle. You can't be that stupid. How could I ever be that stupid? I'm smart. They're stupid. I'm the smart one, right? And that's what happens when you set these goals on difficult games. Like, imagine you've never played CSGO. Or CS, doesn't matter what version. Whichever one's got tons of players on and your friends are playing. And you go, I'm going to start playing CS and I want to get good. I want to compete. I want to do like fucking LAN. I want to go to a LAN place. I want to win. I want to join a team. I want to be the next big thing. Some of you are probably going, what's CS? Others of you are going, oh dear. Because you know what that is. This is a game that's been out like 20 fucking years. And people have been playing it for 20 years. And you think you're just going to storm the castle and steal the princess? I mean, good luck. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll be the next big hot shit. Because, you know, the next phenom has to come from somewhere. Maybe it's you. But statistically, historically, it's probably not. But you don't know that until you try. And then you get crushed and you get demoralized. Absolutely demoralized. And insert skillful game this can work in. Doesn't matter what it is. There are a lot of games nowadays where you can say to somebody, I will 1v1 you in that game, and we'll put money on it, and I will prove that I am better at X than you are. And in a lot of modern games, that will almost be an equal playing field, with the player with the better aptitude will win. If it's even, completely even technologically. That can happen. But if you pick one of these games, one of these skill-based games, skill-forward games, these rare games that they don't want anymore, because they don't sell microtransactions, they don't have Battle Pass frameworks, and if they do, there's so many like anti-fucking competitive features added to them to equalize everything so no one has an advantage. If you pick one of those, and anybody that's involved in this little gambit has any previous existing experience, you will lose. Such is the nature of it. And looping this back, again, we've gone on a big tangent. I do apologise if you don't enjoy these. The problem with saying, I want to get to, let's say, gold in fighting games. I want to get to gold rank in Street Fighter 6. There's two things being said here, but there's only really one. The person who sets this goal, their idea is, I'm going to get better at fighting games. I'm going to get good. I'm going to get to gold. There's three statements there. The person saying it thinks they all correlate together and all come to form a singular statement. I am not a scrub anymore. But they don't. And this is the flaw in this thinking, and this is the problem with this. Focusing on something arbitrary without the understanding of what it means. Getting to gold in Street Fighter 6 means nothing. And I hate to say that. And I hate to break your heart if you've got to gold and it took everything. Because it's true. But it's only true in the grand scheme of the game. And this is a really important distinction, guys. And this is one of the reasons why there's a huge counter-argument. The counter-argument is, if your goal is relative to your ability level, getting to gold when you're not very good at fighting games is a big deal. But in the grand scheme of the game, you're pissing in the wind, and you're wasting your time. Because fundamentally, the rank doesn't matter. And this is the real meat of this conversation. People get so fixated on the words and on the names, on the titles, when the reality is, you shouldn't want to get to any rank. You should just want to get better. You should just want to improve. And you might think, well, if you get to a higher rank, isn't that evidence that you're getting better? And this is my issue. No, it's not. It really isn't. I've seen masters in Street Fighter 6 that have very bad fundamentals, that jump way too much, that rely on some gimmicky pattern that got them where they are because the people they played just didn't happen to have the answers for it. And then the moment that that pattern doesn't work, they don't really know what to do. And I know that sounds like DSP every time he loses, he says something similar to that, and for him it's not generally true. But it can be true. There are people at every rank in Street Fighter 6 who don't really look like they should be there. And there are people at every rank in Street Fighter 6 that look like they should be way higher. The rank doesn't matter. The player does. And this is the pitfall that I think a lot of people run into when they just simply go, I want to get to X. That there sounds like a good goal, and it sounds like an achievable idea. But the reality is, you can get to that rank and learn absolutely nothing. I could get to gold on a new account just by mashing. And that's a problem. And this is why I say to people this. This is why I say it's a bad goal. It's a bad idea. It's a bad way to look at it. Even though, for you, it might have helped. It might have been good. It might have been the thing that got you better. And this is why I say, in the grand scheme of the game, it isn't about the rank. It's about how you got there and what you did to get it. And I talk about this all the time on my stream, because there's a lot of games that come out now that are known to be difficult games and that people struggle with. And then they go on Reddit and say that they're easy, and say that, you know, you've got to get good and you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and it's a skill issue and it's a player issue. And then they write articles that are pretentious as fuck, telling you all the things you've got to learn in order to really vibe with the game and play it at a high level and learn and understand and all this other fucking pseudo-intellectual garbage. And those articles don't tell the truth, they don't tell what's really happening, they don't give you anything. This is a particularly nasty trap here, guys. You'll notice when I hit those buttons, I immediately move down here so my back wasn't pinched in that wall. That way you can use your positioning to beat these dudes. If you stay in that room, it gets real claustrophobic with lots of grenades real quick. Be very careful. And I could have said this in like 30 words, and maybe you would have thought that a salient point like that would have been better and I could talk about something else. But I don't really have anything to talk about with this game because there's not too much to do so. So I've quite enjoyed stretching this tangent out and turning it into maybe something that's a bit more robust, shall we say. A little bit more connected to some different tangents and some different stories. But it's the idea of, do you want to get better as a player or do you want to use a better build? That is another comparable element here that you could say is very, you know, comparable to what we've been talking about. Do you want to improve, or do you just want to use a stronger sword? Sounds like a weird question, doesn't it? But when you think about it, it answers almost every situation that these games occur. Do you want to get to gold, a ranking that means nothing because there's people in gold that still have no idea how to play the game? Or do you want to get to bronze, but understand when they jump, you press a button and hit them out the air. Understand that if you press less and they press more, you can figure out what they're doing and shut them down. And then when they stop pressing, you can then push the initiative and it's your turn to pressure them. Because that doesn't sound like much, does it? And then you'll get those people, oh, he's in silver, he's not as good as the guy in gold. But what if he is? And what if he's better? What if you're unranked and you're better than platinum players? Is a platinum player better than you because he has a platinum rank? And this is, this is the crutch, isn't it? This is what I've been trying to explain to people who've mentioned this. And sometimes it can seem like I'm coming across a bit mean. Some people might call me a gatekeeper, even though it's not meant to be that. I'm trying to open your eyes to a different way of looking at something. And it's really that simple. I'm merely trying to show you something from an oblique angle. And the angle's not that oblique because lots of people have seen it from this angle and they understand what it means. I want you to be one of those people. I don't want you to say, oh, I want to be this rank, but you don't know what a hit confirm is. I don't want you to be higher than that rank, but you have no concept of anything other than jumping in. Because this is the problem with fighting games. They're really hard. And even when you think you know stuff, you fucking don't. And then the icing on the cake in that particular area of this conversation is that this whole ease of use argument is apparently the barrier stopping people from getting to the part of the game that is the most interesting, which is, of course, the outthinking your opponent stage. And to me, I just find it really ironic. Because do you really think, guys, somebody that cannot understand basic execution, which doesn't take that long to learn? I learnt my first fireball in like an hour when I was 6. Do you really think that the person that struggles with that is going to be able to understand the part of a fighting game I struggle with now, 30 years later? Because I think people are in for a shock of their life with this stuff. And I just think it's like anything else, isn't it? It's an excuse to make them feel better about the fact that they're not as good as they think they are. Because nobody wants to admit that they don't know something. The internet's rife with it now. It's probably even a term, it happens so goddamn often. Nobody wants to be wrong because everybody has Google in their pocket. And it's a strange situation to be in. Because if no one's wrong, then can you ever truly be right? That's the problem, isn't it, philosophically? Being wrong is the best thing in the world. Because it's the building blocks to get to the truth. It's the building blocks to get to what is agreed upon and verified to be true. Because without peer review, where the hell are we? Imagine if everyone peer reviews everything the same way. There would be an objective truth of everything. And that would be an impossible world to live in. Because it cannot exist. It would be a utopia. Everything is happy, nothing is sad, right? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how torturous an unending happiness would be? No contrast, no fluctuations, no variations. It would be like an eternal white noise. Soul-crushing. Can you imagine how much your face would ache from smiling? It'd be madness, wouldn't it? But I think it's funny that people think that they're going to be able to do the harder parts of fighting games when they can't do the easy part. Because they've convinced themselves that the easy part's the hard part, and that the hard part is the easy part. To me, it's a wonderful sense of gymnastics there, in a sense of mechanics. And we see it in lots of other games as well. Elden Ring's a great one. Elden Ring came out, and it was a very punishing game. Sadly, there were so many tools in that game to circumvent everything punishing that people convinced themselves that they were good players when in reality they just used cheesy strategies to win. And then you get that wonderful counter-argument, don't you? Like, oh, it's in the game, how can it be cheesy? Well, I suppose objectively it can't be cheesy, can it? Unless it's got, like, cheese in it. But when you look at what is happening there, I think we can all kind of agree that there's a certain level of exploitation happening. You can like it, you can hate it. It's not really about how you feel about it. It's about acknowledging that it exists. You know, are you going into a fight where you have somebody with you who's going to pull the attention of the boss and you can run behind the boss and beat them up without them ever attacking you? I think we can all agree that that's kind of a cheesy thing to do. It is an exploitable situation that leads to an incredibly advantageous position. And yet, if you say that to some people, they get very defensive because they feel like that they earned it just as much as anybody else did. And at the moment, there is a game called Lies of P, which is this Souls-like that's come out. That's a very, very hard game. I think it's the hardest Souls-like I've ever played, and I've played them all, pretty much. But the problem with that game is, you can make it as hard as you want to make it. That's the cool thing about this genre. The reason I find it so difficult is because I don't choose the easy path. The path I choose is to try to get better at the game so I can enjoy it more. That's not the path everyone's going to choose, and you need to be aware of that. This is interesting here, because you can drop something on that guy, which I think is a really nice moment. An interesting sequence of interactables leading to something cool. Lots of touching stuff and environments changing here, which I think is great. There are parts of this game I really love. Be careful of this laser as well. The laser will kill you. There's a trap here as well. If you go the other way, you can get a weapon a bit earlier. I think it's the railgun. But if you do that, the boulder follows you, and it will kill you if you make a mistake. And I think I was just autopiloting here, so I just ended up running down the safe side, and it never procced. But it will, if you give it enough incentive. But there's just some technicians and whatnot here. It's pretty manageable. You've got the gunner. I keep swapping to the rocket launcher. One of the things I don't like about this game is how it tells you when you're trying to swap to a gun that you don't have ammo for. I would rather it just not swap, personally. And you can see, because I'm so eager to rotate through my arms to hit them with different things, I'm constantly trying to put on things I don't have ammo for, so you constantly get that message in the top left. It looks really stupid. But Lies of P has a system where you can spend a resource that's not that rare in order to summon a buddy to help you fight a boss, and the buddy is pretty versatile. They've got a lot of life, they've got a lot of damage, and they pull focus for you. Then the game has designed an entire suite of items around using that buddy. And people beat bosses with it, and then they go on Reddit and on the Steam boards and say how the game is easy and how you've just got to do this and do that and do the other thing. But I know for full well, if they fought that boss without that Spectre, as they're called, they wouldn't have won. And if they had have won, it would have been far messier. And I always ask this question of folks, like, when you do that and you win and you feel the need to go and then boast to players struggling who aren't doing that, where's the logic there that justifies you thinking you did something when in reality you didn't, and the person struggling has chosen a much more difficult path that you yourself are not capable of? In that moment, do you think they just think they're fucking gods and they've just kind of inhaled their own farts long enough to think that they could do it and that what they've done is of equal merit? And hell, maybe it is. Do you think, guys, beating a boss with a buddy who's distracting the boss is of equal merit as somebody who just beats the boss? Because to me, the answer is obvious, but it seems like we're now at the point in society, especially in the video game industry, where everyone's fucking crazy.